Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
You are watching 7 at 7 from the Las Vegas Review-Journal.
Good evening, I'm Carrie Roper. Welcome to 7 at 7 p.m. for Friday, January 29th. You're watching 7 minutes of non-stop news from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Let's get to our top story tonight, sponsored by Carnegie Heights. And we start with a story we broke right here at the Review-Journal. The FBI has arrested 2 men in Las Vegas wanted in connection with the January 6th riots at the U.S. Capitol. Nathaniel DeGrave and Ronald Sandlin, both 31 years old of Memphis, Tennessee, were arrested yesterday. This morning, the FBI tweeted that the men were arrested as, quote, a result of their alleged criminal activity at the U.S. Capitol. Criminal complaints filed by federal authorities in Washington, D.C. charged DeGrave and Sandlin with violent entry and disorderly conduct on Capitol grounds. And we will continue to follow this story as it develops here on 7 at 7 and LVRJ.com. In more news, Superintendent Jesus JARA gave his annual State of the Schools address today. In his presentation, he outlined the Clark County School District's efforts to address mental health in response to student suicides during the pandemic. He also said education likely would not return to what it was before COVID-19.
So this school year has been taxing on the economy. It has been especially taxing on this community. This is why we must continue to fight for 15,000 kids, because you know what? They are counting on us. They are counting on the adults to get it right.
Retired Las Vegas Police Detective Michael Karstedt was widely respected by his colleagues, who said he was a top-notch detective who had an empathetic side for those who needed it. Karstedt died earlier this month due to COVID-19 complications. Following his death, his family, friends, and others in local law enforcement remember his dedication to the Valley and his desire to keep its residents safe. 12 first-time state lawmakers will be among the new 81st session of the Nevada legislature, which convenes on February 1st. We spoke to our Carson City Bureau reporter Colton Lockhead to get a better idea of what these new lawmakers will be handling.
We have 12 lawmakers who don't have any kind of experience. And what that means is that, and specifically in this regard, they're getting a much different type of, it's going to be a much different experience. There's usual pretty intensive freshman training that goes on up here in Carson City. We know that everything's going to start virtually, so they won't be able to, it's going to be similar to the special session from the summer where it was lawmakers, essential staff, and a handful of members of the media inside that building, at least sounds like probably for at least the first month.
CARES Act-related fraud has run rampant in the state for some time now, and now Nevada has received additional funding to prosecute these cases. It's reported that some have cheated thousands, even millions out of the system meant to support small businesses and families. Review-Journal's Jonathan Ng tells us what the state plans to do about it.
The state's top federal prosecutor, U.S. Attorney Nicholas Trutanek, said the Department of Justice found that Nevada is a hotspot for fraud. Trutanek said that DIAZ, the state's unemployment agency, was hit hard by fraudsters. His office recently received funding to hire a dedicated prosecutor to combat CARES Act fraud, including more criminal prosecution for unemployment fraud cases.
In your weather news, today started out with some random showers throughout the morning and into early afternoon, and that looks to be the end of the rainy weather we've been experiencing this week. Tomorrow we'll finally get some sunshine with highs around 56 degrees and lows at 37 degrees. The clouds will creep back in Sunday and early next week, but the highs will get back up into the 60s range, giving us something to look forward to after this week's chilly weather.
Sports, sponsored by Scenic Brewing Company. Saturday's Senior Bowl is more important than ever for NFL teams because there will not be a scouting combine this year to evaluate potential draft picks. The Raiders are eyeing multiple defensive players at this year's Senior Bowl. Raiders beat writer Vinny Bonsignore has more.
Guys, it's caught my eye that I know that the Raiders are also taking deep dives on. Rashard Weaver, defensive end from Pitt, long, lanky. Showed a lot of power this week. Richie Grant from Central Florida, a safety. He really excelled in one-on-one press coverage. So those are a few of the guys, but I know that they've talked to over 30 players out here, so they're definitely doing their due diligence.
Here's your Friday sports betting update. The biggest bet so far on Super Bowl 55 was placed Thursday night in Nevada on the underdog Buccaneers. A bettor made a $2.3 million straight bet on the BetMGM mobile app to win $2 million on Tampa Bay plus 3.5 points over the Kansas City Chiefs. BetMGM said it was happy to take the wager after it previously took 4 six-figure bets on the Chiefs, who are consensus 3-point favorites over the Buccaneers at Las Vegas sportsbooks.
In your business news, sponsored by the Las Vegas Chamber, 2019 might have been a record year for convention visitation, but 2020 will be looked back on as the worst year for visitation in decades. Review Journal's Rick Vallata tells us why.
It was one of the worst in decades, and the reason why is because of the pandemic, obviously. We can't see people here for conventions for a while, but the fact is that this was the worst year since 1989, which was the year the Mirage opened. And it's not going to get better until we start seeing more people with vaccines. Travel needs to pick up, the air traffic needs to pick up. And once that happens, then we can start to see a little bit of a return to normalcy.
In your health news, a COVID-19 pop-up vaccination clinic at Jerome Mack Middle School opened this morning for scheduled vaccination appointments for seniors age 70 and older. Renee Summerhour has more on the brief overview of the site operations setup.
Carrie, the pop-up clinic will operate today and Tuesday through Thursday of next week. People are encouraged to check the vaccine distribution page on the health district's website. The state of Nevada also set up a call center operating 24/7 to help answer residents' questions about the COVID-19 vaccine. Here's what Las Vegas City Councilwoman Olivia DIAZ had to say.
Be persistent. Check that website over and over and over. You may not land your appointment on your first visit. Also, help the seniors that may not be able to navigate the technology themselves.
Residents who have questions are asked to call 1-800-401-0946. For more on this story, log on to lvrj.com. Carrie?
In your lifestyle news, sponsored by Las Vegas Motor Speedway, a new Kickoff for Kids fundraiser is aiming to help homeless youth in Nevada. The donations run through February 7th to coincide with the NFL season's final game. The goal is to reach $10,000 in donations by that time, and to date, donations are just over $6,000. To help, you can visit moveforlessnevada.com/NPHY. The Neon Museum is offering a free virtual history lesson on the 9 vintage signs the museum has on display. The virtual presentation, called Beyond the Boneyard: Restored Roadside Relics, is scheduled for 6 to 7 p.m. on February 4th. Staff members will also share information on the museum's efforts to reintroduce these artifacts into the city. The signs included in the program include the Hacienda, the Silver Slipper, and the Normandy Motel. That's all for today's 7 at 7 p.m. from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. I'm Carrie Roper. Thanks for joining us. And remember, get every bit of local news you need in 7 minutes with 7 at 7 from lvrj.com. And we hope you'll join us again Monday morning at 7 a.m. Have a wonderful weekend.
Review Journal Studio, sponsored by attorney Adam Kuttner. Get the maximum settlement as quickly as possible. This 7 at 7 update is sponsored by Pro Group Management. You are watching 7 at 7 from the Las Vegas Review-Journal.